My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Summers and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paolini and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time it is in the world, wherever you are tuning in from. If it sounds like I'm coming to you from a somewhat lively bar in the middle of a city, that's because I am coming to you from a somewhat lively bar in the middle of a city. This is the first time we've done a Power Rankings live. What I would like, therefore, for you to do is in the live chat, is to let me know what your power rankings would be and also your agreements and disagreements with mine, which are about to come forthwith. I will be addressing those at the end of the show. In the meantime, let's get to it. First of all, I have one, I repeat, one honorable mention, and that is merely for Senor João Fonseca. And he is, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not quite sure who he is, I'm pretty sure in the coming weeks or months, you will soon become familiar with him. He's actually been described as Boris Becker's dark horse for this tournament. I think he's anything but a dark horse, as he's so far on the radar. He's the size of a giant ship, let's say this, but he certainly can move a lot better and quicker than a giant ship can. But he's not in my top 10 for power rankings, and that was a fairly comfortable decision for me. I will let you know, actually, though, that my 10 decisions were, the top 6 were super easy, and then it got very difficult. So I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with my next 3 or 4 choices in terms of their viability for being in the top 10. And I'm also pretty sure there'll be some conjecture about the order of the top 6. But for me, the top 6 had to be in the top 10 one way or another. Anyway, let's get to it. Actually, before I just go on to say my number 10 choice, I will say that my kind of strategy for doing this is current form, Australian Open pedigree, and world ranking, last 12 months, Australia, generally, especially the last few weeks, but even in previous years, etc., etc. Hopefully that will become clear. I then look at the world rankings, and it's quite easy then to sift through them going, okay, if you're outside the top 50 or even the top 32, i.e. the seeds, then it's pretty difficult to include them in a top 10. I also am doing this irrespective of the draw. That's really important to address that. It's nothing to do with the draw. This is just about just going for it. And here we go. Let's get to it, because I'm mumbling right now and you don't want me to mumble. Okay, so number 10 is Ben Shelton. And for me, yes, indeed, Blazy, all good. For me, Ben Shelton has to be in here, because I think, no, this is not pre-recorded, by the way, Blazy. Just let me know your top 10 choices and I'll come to them at the end. Yeah, it was really difficult to know, because Shelton's form has been patchy since losing to Francis Tiafoe in New York. However, I do have him just here because his Australian Open pedigree is pretty good, having gone far in the past. And I just think, listen, he has to raise his game for the hard court periods, and especially the hard court slams, because he's probably going to have dips elsewhere in the season, especially on the clay. So it's now or never for him in terms of really, getting a good slam run under his belt. And I have so much faith in him, even more than perhaps even Ben has himself in terms of his game. I think he described himself as a potential serve ball. I see him as a lot more than that. And I think when he gets even more confidence in that loopy left hand, then I think he'll do even better. Let's get to it. Number 9 is Andrei Rublev. Now, again, Rublev, a bit tricky in terms of does he make even the top 10, bearing in mind his form as well. And remember, I'm doing this irrespective of the draw. We all know he's about to play João Fonseca in that first round, but I'm doing this irrespective of that. But his pedigree in terms of slams, in terms of getting to quarterfinals, of which he's done half a dozen times or more, and in Australia too, he has to be there. And despite his patchy-ish record over the last 12 months, he does indeed make my top 10 at number 9. Number 8 is Alex de Minaur on home territory. Basically, when he's fit and he's healthy, he's been a top 6-7 player for the last 12 months. Very unlucky at Wimbledon last year. He's a former Australian Open quarter-finalist when he lost to the imperious Novak Djokovic, when Djokovic was en route to his 2023 crown. So, in fact, it might be fourth round, so I do apologise for that. No, fourth round quarterfinals. Let me know in the live chat. Either way, he went deep. He certainly went to the second week that year. And again, hard court is up there with grass as being his surface and, of course, home territory. So, next, though, number 7 on my list, Stefanos Tsitsipas. Now, I'm sure some of you are screaming at your screens right now going, Stefanos Tsitsipas, how can you have him in your top 10? Never mind your top 7. As I said to you, the first 6 almost pick themselves. However, Stefanos Tsitsipas just gets in because of his AO pedigree, okay? An Australian Open semi-finalist in 2022, an Australian Open finalist in 2023. Therefore, despite his very, very patchy, and I'm using that word again, form for the last 6 to 12 months, and many of you may well suspect that he won't even be in the top 10 world rankings come a year from now, or even perhaps the top 20. He's actually ranked, I think, number 11 right now. You know, might well be thinking, what's he doing there? Well, pedigree. He's also unlike New York. This is his moment. I mean, we talk about someone who's got their slams. He's the first 2 slams of the year. We know how he is on grass, and we know how he performs in New York. So it's, again, for him, it's a little bit now or never in terms of a hard court slam, because New York has a wretched record. Australia's the opposite. Australia, you can more or less rely on him to go deep. 2021 semi-finals as well. So Stefanos Tsitsipas basically is there on pedigree alone. As I say, you could pretty much have anyone between 6 and 20 in the world rankings in that sort of 7 to 10 range, or even 5 to 10. I haven't gone for Casper Ruud, by the way. That's a little clue for my future picks. Casper Ruud doesn't make it. Again, he doesn't slightly faster hard court. He has a better record in New York where he made the final, but Stefanos Tsitsipas is the absolute polar opposite, where Australia is his thing. Plus, he gets a bit of home support from the Aussie crowd, with so many Greeks living in Melbourne. Okay, let's pick up the pace, but before I do so, it is time to say cheers, or saúde, and share with you my number 6, which is Taylor Fritz. I have Taylor Fritz in at number 6 because he is, one of the best players in the world right now. He's actually ranked, I think, number 4 in the world rankings. But I have got him in at number 6 here because I just feel as though there's a few others that are slightly ahead of him in the pecking order, which we'll come to in a second. But yes, maybe you think I've got Taylor Fritz a little bit too low on my list. If you do think so, then get in the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. But let's race on to our number 5. Again, pedigree very important here. Not won a title in the whole of last year, but you can rely on him in slams. Last year's Wimbledon semi-finalist, last year's Australian Open finalist. Of course, he's been in the final 3 occasions before, losing to Novak Djokovic in straight sets, and on 2 other occasions against Rafa in 2022 and Sinner last year. He was 2 sets to love up. And therefore, hard court, he's a hard court specialist. For me, he has to figure in any power rankings. Where you place him, up to you, but he's got to be in that top 10. For me, he has to be in the top 6 as well, despite his form. Here's a suggestion here that my suggestion of Fritz is overrated. He won't make the quarterfinals, and so confidence is Jaeger. He's repeating that mantra. Okay, now moving on to number 4. Again, I think this was quite easy for me. Number 4, Alexander Zverev. For me, you can rely on him as well at slams, and especially a hard court slam. I do anticipate him making the semi-finals one way or another. Gone are the days when he has shocking losses like he had to Shapovalov in Australia, and he made the semi-finals last year where he probably could have and should have beaten Daniel Medvedev, but he ended up losing in 5 sets. Zverev, for me, you know, he's as close to the absolute top of the sport as anyone. In fact, there's no one closer, in my opinion, than he is. But now let's get to the top 3. Is this a controversial choice at number 3? Novak Djokovic, the 24-time Grand Slam winner. We're seeing the 22 figure on his jacket here from when he won his last Australian Open crown, which, by the way, for him is eons ago, just 2 years ago, which for most people would be incredible. But for him, skipping a year in terms of not winning it as he lost in the semi-finals to Jannik Sinner last year is massive. The main reason he doesn't make the top 2 or even the top 1 spot is his last 12 months. Losing to Mahach, losing to Mahach was on clay in Geneva, but you're going to just hear this list of losses he's had in the last 12 months. Losing to Opelka, for example, quite recently in Adelaide. And if we look at his 2024 record, just listen to some of the players that he lost to in 2024. And we're going to hear those players now. And they include Casper Ruud from memory. I think he lost 9 times last year. If we have a quick look, I'm just going to have a quick look on the ATP website. Who did he lose to? De Minaur in the United Cup, for example. He lost to Jannik Sinner, of course, in Australia. He loses to Luca Nardi, maybe the harshest of all his losses last year, 123 in the world. Losing, of course, to Casper Ruud, as I said, in 3 sets in Monte Carlo. Losing to Tabilo, losing to Mahach, losing to, obviously withdrawing from the French Open, but then losing to Alcaraz in the final in Wimbledon. Alcaraz is probably the one name that stands out. Losing to Popper in New York, and again losing to Sinner. Once again in the Shanghai Masters before pulling out of the ATP finals. So there's so many sort of brutal, I would call, losses to players that you would just never expect a peak Novak to be losing to. And his movement as well is just a little bit off. Hey, he may prove me wrong, which is why he's still in the top 3. Basically, you're in my top 4 power rankings, then I still think you've got a hell of a great chance of winning the title. But unlike a year ago, for me, he doesn't go into this tournament as favourite. Number 2 on my power rankings is Carlos Alcaraz. Time to have a quick sip of beer, probably the last one for this episode. Now, some of you may have Carlos at 3 or 4, given his Australian Open pedigree is not that great, particularly compared to the other 3 slams, which he's won, of course. He is looking to become the youngest player to win all 4 Grand Slam titles and complete that set and win his 5th Grand Slam. He is occasionally vulnerable to early losses, albeit, not the first couple of rounds. That helps in terms of his pedigree, albeit that his Aussie Open pedigree is nothing further than the quarterfinals, and that was achieved a year ago before he lost to Alexander Zverev. So why is he ahead of Zverev? Well, I think last year's world rankings, do they give us a slight lie of how the picture lies, bearing in mind he's actually ranked in the world rankings lower than Alexander Zverev, certainly in terms of Grand Slams. And I think hard court is fine, but the speed of these courts in Australia probably affects my reasoning for having him at number 2 rather than my number 1, which, surprise, surprise, is Tommy Paul? No. Jannik Sinner, of course, the reigning champion on a hard court. Basically, he's not failed to win a set for over a year. I repeat, he's not failed to win a set for over a year. On the hard courts, he's basically imperious, even when he's playing against Novak Djokovic. And okay, that head-to-head last year with Carlos Alcaraz 3-0 does affect him a little bit, but ultimately, the speed here of the courts, I think, favours him. If this was the US Open, I may well flip him and Carlos, but it's not. It's Australia. It's where Jannik got his first of his 2 Grand Slam titles, both on a hard court last year. And I see him as being the favourite and also the number 1 pick for my power rankings. Let me know in the comments section below whether you agree or you disagree with any of my choices. And Don't forget to subscribe, all that jazz, and I'll be with you again very, very soon.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.